Welcome, welcome. I'm Paul Wilborn, and this is Amanda. We're going to be signing. Thank you all. I want to welcome everybody. I'm incredibly pumped to come out and see this many folks gathered to talk about the arts in my hometown. These are exciting times for the arts and for our community. I'm amazed at the growth and the improvements in Tampa and beyond, as someone who's lived here and seen when there wasn't such great, exciting things. With the arrival of a new mayor who understands the power of the arts on many levels, I think we can mark this date and this gathering as the start of a new era of growth and excitement around the arts. I have worked this in. I recently wrote a book about the Ybor Arts Colony in the 1980s. About it, they call it legendary. You know you're getting old when anything that you did is called legendary. But, you know, by doing the book, I was reminded when the Ybor art scene was thriving, Tampa had no performing arts center. The museum was a jerry-rigged annex attached to the Curtis Hickson Hall. Tampa Theater had been saved, but just barely. The Ritz Theater was showing X-rated movies. I think we had graphic studios about our only saving grace at that point, Marty, and thanks to you. And that's what helped make Ybor. When we were at Ybor, we had no money, no permits, no 501 status, no insurance. All we had were talented people with ideas and energy, and apparently that's all it takes to do something now considered legendary. So much magic has happened in our community since then. And when I say community, I'm not talking about governmental boundaries. We're talking Tampa, we're talking Plant City, we're talking Hillsborough County, we're talking Pinellas, St. Pete, Clearwater. Artists and performers don't recognize governmental boundaries. Despite how hard it was to get here today, artists will cross the bridge to go where the work is. They don't build bridges, they cross them. They do build bridges and they cross them. That was my great line and I just blew it. Tonight, we're not comparing cities, we're not debating old policies or decisions, we're looking ahead. We've come a long way. And tonight could be the beginning of deciding where do we go from here. If you're here hoping to air a complaint or talk about some slight that happened to you or your organization in the past, I do encourage you, write it down, send yourself an email or a letter, don't bring it up here. We're talking about the future tonight. About this evening, we have no sponsors to recognize. This event was put together by arts leaders, volunteers, and Tampa's brand new mayor, Jane Castor. We're going to do 3 panels after she welcomes you. One on arts, vision, and leadership, one on arts as an economic driver, and one on grassroots arts. And after those panels, we'll have questions from the audience, and we'll also hear again from the mayor, and we'll be done at 8. So let's get going. First, I'd like to welcome the first mayor I can remember who doesn't have a South Tampa address, my former neighbor in Seminole Heights, our new mayor, Mayor Jane Castor.
Thank you all for coming out here this evening. This is wonderful. And although Paul said there are no sponsors, I would like to thank everyone who put this event together this evening. You know, a lot of work, a lot of energy goes into making something look easy and look flawless. So thank you, including Neil Gobioff and Bill Carlson and everyone that really, took part in putting this together tonight. So thank you. Beginning of time, or we should say, or I should say, since the beginning of wars, when a country invaded another country, the first thing that they attacked are the arts, because that really defines a country, it defines a culture, it defines a people. So the arts and culture are incredibly important, and they've always been important here in Tampa. You know, our diversity of cultures here is what defines us. as a city, and our diversity is something that we embrace every single day. And that is incredibly important because, again, as I stated, we were built on our diversity here in the city of Tampa. So when asked to define a forum of the arts, we would receive a variety of answers. From probably the most immediate answer would be paintings, sculptures, and photographs, those types of things. But we all know that the arts include so many more forms and formats that enhance, educate, and entertain us as individuals and as a community, frankly. Art can elicit a plethora of emotions, from happiness to sorrow to anger. And art is in the eye of the beholder is, at least for me, the most profoundly correct and incredibly frustrating statement that I have ever heard. A person with artistic taste in our house is my partner, Anna, without a doubt. And we have, I say we, which translates to Anna, we have an incredible collection of local art from local artists and from artists around the United States and from other countries as well. And in most instances, I do know art when I see it. I see Anna shaking her head, but that's certainly not always. So I have to say thank you very much to Anna for expanding my artistic appreciation. As you all know, my world has always been more or less black and white, kind of just the facts, ma'am, for those of you who are old enough to remember that show. But as a city, we are active in the arts. And just a few examples of that hopefully you all have seen. Lights on Tampa, which has actually gained a public arts collection that totals over 700 pieces. And actually my first weekend, or my first week in office, and I guess I can say this, I'm the mayor. Anna and Ashley went through the city hall and basically appropriated art from different floors to decorate the very sad office of the mayor of the city of Tampa, which had absolutely nothing there. So that was a lot of fun. So maybe the collection of public art is down to maybe 685, something like that. So creative arts theater that reaches thousands of kids in our community annually. 5 art studios where city residents can learn to make art. And we also support cultural nonprofits through financial assistance. The city gives an incredible amount of financial assistance to Tampa Museum of Art, the Tampa Theater, Performing Arts Center, the Florida Orchestra, just to mention a few. And we also have one of the things that we're getting ready to, the first arts project for the mayor is going to be what we call Art on the Block. And that is a program that we are going to take out into the neighborhoods. It's a program that's envisioned to bring art into our neighborhoods. And the intent is to create places that have been ho-hum in the past to very, very exciting, to incentivize curb appeal. And the goal, in addition to placemaking, will be to bring artwork into neighborhoods by and with the community, not in service to the community. To strengthen citizenry, to open communication, to create better neighborhoods, foster visual literacy, create future art patrons, reduce prejudices, open minds and discussion, and tell the stories of our neighborhoods that keep their history alive. A number of different forms, including mosaics and murals, and the first location is going to be in the Al Barnes Park over in East Tampa. So we're very excited about this. So I know that we have an art scene here in Tampa. It isn't as to be. So I can tell you that my intent as the mayor is to grow the arts in Tampa in a very, very big way. It's going to include everyone in this room and so many more throughout the city. We're going to have public-private partnerships. We're all going to have to work together. It's very, very important. And some of you may or may not have heard me talk about my vision for the city. People have talked in the past about other cities around the nation that do other things well, including the arts. But I don't want to be chasing any city. We are Tampa, and we are a very unique city that we need to celebrate. So my vision as the mayor is that at the end of my tenure is that other cities from around the nation come to Tampa to see our art scene. Said, I want to get out of the way so we can get to the real crux of the Forum on Arts here this evening, and that's the panels. I look so forward to hearing everything that is brought up and discussed this evening, and once again, I appreciate everything that everyone has done so far to promote the arts in Tampa, and I cannot wait for the future. Thank you.
Okay, apparently it's this mic. All right, we've got a panel on creating an arts vision and a leadership structure. We've got about 20 minutes, and so everybody help us out by keeping your comments tight and bright, as I used to tell everyone I interviewed in the newspaper. Tight, bright, people. I want to start with, these are all good folks for me. I'd like to start and let each body's going to give a 1 to 2 minute, just a brief comment about their vision for the arts in Tampa, or whatever they want to say. And I'd like to start with Margaret Miller, USF CAM and Graphic Studio. Go ahead.
Go. Thank you, Paul. I'm so honored to be a part of this panel, and I too want to thank Neil Gobioff and Gianna with the Gobioff Foundation, and Bill Carlson, who I've had the pleasure of having a long coffee one morning with. So I have 2 minutes to talk about a vision and propose a possible structure for moving forward. Several years ago, many of you will remember this, economic development scholar Richard Florida promoted an enormously influential image of successful 21st century cities as places where social tolerance and natural and cultural amenities draw educated workers and create new economy businesses. Tampa, just learned, is now ranked as one of the 23 best cities in America, and I was interested to see the reasons why, because of our low crime, pleasant weather, and our diverse parks and outdoor attractions, including beaches and the Tampa River. And I guess also the vibrant beer scene. Our ambition, which the mayor has just outlined, should be to move up in the ratings. And I think the arts and culture can be central to strengthening and promoting the identity of our city and achieving an even better ranking. The criticism of Richard Florida's approach is that the gentrification and real estate development in the downtown core is often developed at the expense of urban populations in diverse and distinctive neighborhoods. The identity of Tampa with its distinctive neighborhoods is very different than a city like St. Petersburg that is more centralized and is now touted as a cultural destination. For my vision statement, I want to introduce 2 concepts: the concept of cultural competency, and suggest the value of a fluid and diverse arts ecosystem as the basis for a functional infrastructure. Cultural competency is about promoting an understanding of the transformational power of the arts to serve as a platform to inspire our citizenry, business, and political leaders. Cultural competency is necessary to build a strong identity that respects and honors cultural differences that are inherently part of Tampa's history and our current demographics. Art programming, for example, including exhibitions, which I very much am engaged with, and arts residencies, can advance an understanding of cultural competency. Building a fluid and diverse arts ecosystem as a functional infrastructure requires identifying our cultural assets, including arts institutions, organizations, big and small, professional artists, and local, regional arts professionals. So in the instructions to us on the panel, we weren't supposed to address just only government, but I thought I'd come up with a few action steps. I see that at this point in our history, to establish a Tampa Arts Commission would really help move us forward. The commission can be appointed by the mayor and city council, and commission members should include professional artists, arts leaders from major organizations, and academic institutions. They're always important. And other stakeholders with diverse backgrounds, but with expertise and strong links to Tampa's arts community. The commission can do very much like what's being done today, hold town meetings, create forums, create task forces, and research successful infrastructures in other cities. The commission will promote arts-driven development and engage us all in an open and inclusive dialogue with our citizenry. Secondly, the commission may recommend, and I think this would be terrific, and I think Paul was one of these people at one point, or he was an arts commissioner, but I think we should consider hiring a consultant to create a cultural plan based on the work of the commission. Then 3, and I only have 4 things, would be to hire an arts commissioner as part of city government that would work with the Tampa Arts Commission and implement the approved cultural plan. And I foresee the establishment of a Tampa Office of Arts and Culture, and the creation of departments that are managed by high-quality arts professionals, and there's so many now in this community. This Tampa Office of Arts and Culture might have a program for grants for artists and cultural organizations. It might include a department that addresses the needs for our leading organizations and cultural facilities that need support. It may also help merging creative businesses and arts organizations. And 3, I think there should be a manager or a department head of cultural space liaison. Create a city space policy. Seek and cultivate space for art studios and cultural organizations. Create a space finder for pop-up exhibitions and events or rehearsals. Incentivize developers and businesses to provide space for the arts, both for profit and nonprofit. And lastly, consider, which you already have under Rob and I, a public art or creative placemaking department. Clarify the percent for art fees and processes. Consider broadening the arts fee and using funds as a source for grants and temporary public art projects. Thank you.
Michael Tomar, Tampa Museum of Art. You do not have to go that long. It's fine if you want to go that long.
Nicely done. Nicely done, Mark.
But that was
Thank you. I would like to thank the Mayor Jane Castor. This is a remarkable thing that she's done to make this a priority for our city, and I'm so proud to be a member of this community while she is in office. Thank you. And I'd also like to thank the Gobiovs, always there for all of us in many ways, with a great smile and great energy. And Bill Carlson, just congratulations on your appointment, but also for your support over a dozen years in the arts community. We are truly the recipient of your inspiration. So in 1 to 2 minutes, a grand vision. Well, I'll just start by saying that one doesn't fall in love or have a profound emotional reaction or invest their personal time, their money, or their families in common markets and economics, technology enhancements, roads and bridges, and corporations. However, I would argue that if the public and the for-profit organizations that oversee these initiatives, stated above, integrated a cultural policy of and for the community into the fabric of economic development, technology, roads and bridges, and corporate culture, the community would invest their personal time, money, and family back into the community. So what does the leadership structure of something like that look like? How do we get there? I think first and foremost, we have to start asking the art community how they can get behind a project that has yet to be developed, not the recipient of one that has already been developed. Intentional and full integration of the arts with art professionals in decision-making regarding economic development of core areas of the city, capital build-outs and infrastructure enhancements, including transportation, neighborhood revitalization, parks, recreation, all green spaces and waterways, real estate, housing and urban developments, community-wide marketing and public relations strategies, and mental and physical health care initiatives. And this cannot be accomplished by setting up a task force, can be, Margaret, but not alone by setting up a task force or a community group or an agency to vet arts integration. Arguably, it cannot be accomplished by simply developing the Cultural Affairs Division or advisory group. Rather, as professionals in the community, we must be a part of every organizational facet as a matter of a business model. The question that must always be asked is, how does this project, this development, this technology, this healthcare initiative, this community investment integrate creativity, artistry, and culture into the fabric of its deliverable? So I know this sounds like we're all miracle workers in the arts world, and we have all the answers to all the problems. It's not the case, and it's far from the truth. However, I will share that Tampa has a world-renowned aquarium, one of the great research centers of North America. Graphic Studio has been on the forefront of artist residency and community arts integration since its beginnings. The Straz Performing Arts Center is one of the foremost performing arts centers in the country. As presenters and educators, our Tampa Museum of Art is reaching over 160 community schools and organizations across the county at the museum and off-site, and I could go on and laud every one of our cultural agencies. It is a rich cultural landscape in this community. And each of those organizations is run by hundreds, not tens, hundreds of creative, talented businessmen and women who have figured out how to provide remarkably high-quality life experiences on ridiculously tight budgets. How do we do this successfully then, as arts professionals? Well, we have a leadership team of investors in place to work with us. My 2 boards combined are composed of 7 lawyers, 6 mental and healthcare physicians, physical and mental, 12 wealth managers, artists, collectors, philanthropists, engineers, architects, teachers, CPAs, and other forms from a variety of the nonprofit sector. We recognize the needs as our professionals to non-arts integration into our arts programming. And I believe the reverse is true. We all need each other. We cannot do without each other, otherwise we work in a vacuum. And so I will go back and say, good, solid, well-rounded decision-making only happens when we are all sitting at the same table, being creative, challenging ourselves to become more relevant to an ever-changing and growing society. Let's face it, arts are part of a thriving ecology of a city. It sustains the life force of the community, and the community will invest in this when the benefits have a direct impact on their personal and professional commitment and their life. So we were asked to take a look at what we should see in 5 years from now. I would see arts advocates, philanthropists, artists, and arts professionals sitting at the decision-making table before the decisions are made. And in 10 years, I would see the results of that investment in the arts demonstrating deliverables that will attract new residents and retain those who would otherwise go elsewhere to a community that offers that type of arts integration. I want every resident of this community to participate in the elevation of arts and culture offers, and the only way to make that happen is to involve them and involve the arts in the decision makings of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. These are great. Next, my friend Carl Hartley from Stageworks Theater. Carl.
I've never been good at following the rules. To be asked to envision your city in 15, 10, or even 5 years is really heady. It was difficult for me to answer because my heart generally lies in intangible things rather than tangible things. So I'm going to try to mix both of them together for you and hopefully make some sense as I go about it. Part of that answer is that the Tampa Fringe Festival should grow to rival the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which this past August brought in $254 million to the city of Edinburgh, Scotland. So that's part of it. That economic footprint is part of it. Another part of it is that cultural facilities, and it sounds like Jane's already on top of this, would be at the doorstep of every neighborhood in this city. You should not have to walk too far. You should not have to take a bus to engage in artistic expression. A city in which you cannot turn a corner without engaging in some form of art, whether it's a mural, dance, street performance, musical performance, digital performances, whatever that may be for you. You cannot turn the corner in the city without envisioning or engaging in some sort of artistic expression and energy. Tampa should be a destination for artists and placemakers to build new work, to share innovation, to have open space creation in our city, to lead, not follow, other cities in the nation. Study after study has shown that arts experiences and integration is good for the mind, for the heart, and for your health. Full arts integration on city streets, city functions, city services, and that brand new spanking high-speed transit will not just contribute to a culture, but it is a defined and quantitative economic generator, which we'll hear about later, and of happier, healthier inhabitants. Artists are amazing creatures. We rebel against limitations of labels like race, nationality, religion, ethnicity, whatever other label you want to place upon us, and challenge the notions of uniformity and conformity. The most important weapon that an artist has in their arsenal is curiosity. And the constant companion to curiosity is empathy. Curiosity requires you to come out of your skin and inhabit someone else's. And when you do that fully, when you do that viscerally, you cannot have conflict. You will naturally have understanding. And that is what the arts can bring to this community. I've lived here my entire life. I lived here when, to be a successful artist, you had to leave. And that's changing. I'm proud to say that that's changing. I'm happy to say that we're a part of it. Arts has the power to change lives, it has the power to open hearts, and it has the power to build bridges. And I think that by working together, collectively, with the Arts Council, with the county, with Tampa, we can all do that together and make this city, our city, my city, a vibrant place in which to live. It is our mission, it is our vision, and it is our calling to do so. The power of art, but more importantly, the power of individual artists can transform this city, and I look forward to working with you to make it happen.
Thank you, Carla. Now, from Gasparilla Music Festival, David Cox.
Thank you to the Gobioffs and Councilman Carlson for taking your time. This is really an awesome day. And thank you to the mayor for taking the time to listen to all of us. We really appreciate it. I'm going to kind of stick with just our discipline focus on our kind of vision for our organization and what we vision for music as it fits into the city of Tampa in the future. Our foundation would start with the idea of having a progressive music festival in downtown Tampa that would showcase local artists and bring together a diverse crowd with the experience of live music performance being the common thread. The driving force for us was that more people congregating, working, living in downtown would lead to a stronger community, and more ideas could develop, and businesses, individuals, artists could prosper from the critical masses. We had this beautiful new park at the time, Curtis Hickson, and we did have a concern on sort of how it was going to get programmed. So we recruited an energetic group of individuals, businesses that bought into our idea and were able to launch a music festival. After that launch, our focus went to a long-term plan which was based upon contributing to our city by creating a vibrant music economy. We saw growing recognition among governments and other stakeholders that a city with a vibrant music economy could deliver significant economic, employment, cultural, and social benefits. Our vision for Tampa is to create a fertile environment where artists, particularly musicians in our case, can prosper. We would like to see affordable housing for creatives in our urban core, more paid performance opportunities for local artists, and ease of access to support services such as mental health services, professional service, studio spaces. To grow our pool of local artists, we also need to improve our educational programs. We started a music instrument program focused on supporting elementary and middle school classrooms, but we hope in the future to be a strong advocate for more funding to help make all of our schools heavily invested in the arts. Looking forward at a leadership structure, part of our vision would be to have a music commission, and not a commission set up for curating and programming, but something made up of the stakeholders in this economy, this music economy, such as venues, recording studios, artists, where we could look at long-term policies and how to affect the growth of this music industry. Some of the examples are zoning issues, so that's a lot to take on for some venues, but a lot of cities have run into this where you see a lot of urban growth, and all of a sudden you have an apartment building or condominium building next to a historic music venue, and the problems start. So we want to look at this long term and see how we can get ahead of some of these issues happening. Big picture, from music teachers to sound engineers, classical musicians to rappers, elementary schools to colleges. We want music to be a part of our city's DNA and to build an impactful music economy.
Thank you. I think we've got time for one sort of round robin with this group. And everybody has talked a little bit about visioning or planning or creating a commission. And I think as one who's lived, if you've lived long enough, you've seen multiple artist plans go on the shelf that have never happened. I wonder if you could just address what some immediate steps might be in your vision to get this moving. How do you take the next steps to get there? We can start down at the end and work our way down. And please kind of keep it to about 30 seconds if we can.
Well, as I said, I'll respond very quickly. As I suggested, I think you have to come up with some structure, an infrastructure, and I suggest that it be fluid and build an ecosystem for all the arts and arts organizations in the Tampa Bay area. Yes, it's true. I don't like doing strategic planning and producing cultural plans, but you need a map of where you're going to aspire to go that can be adapted. And I think there needs to be appointed at this point in our history a commission made up of the very people that are serving on these panels and others to address how we might move forward and what the next steps might be.
Anybody else with Mike?
Yeah, I would say that leadership comes in all different forms and varieties, but I think that when our leadership, both in the public and the private sector, stand up and say that this is important, then we've got a great voice in our community to jump onto. So I think that it is about the public sector coming forward, but I also think that it's the private sector as well. And I think part of the issue, a first step, one of the big challenges that I've noticed is that we're simply just not telling our story well. I mean, the cultural landscape in Tampa, in my opinion, is extremely rich. There is a lot going on here, much more than I could ever keep up with. I can barely keep up with just the visual art. I mean, but integrating the performance and all of the music and everything else that's going on, I just simply think that we're undermining ourselves by not getting the word out about what we're doing. There is a lot happening here. Yes, there should be some sort of direction that takes us to the next place so that it's integrated. But I would say we should take some sort of a cultural inventory and start telling our story better. And they can just be in your 1-minute sound bites or your social tweets just to get the word out to the people who live here, not to mention the people who don't. I think that is a huge issue here, one that I can't even get my head around. It's so big. But that's an easy first place to start, is just to tell our story better.
Thank you, Michael. Carl? Feel free to applaud. Great idea.
Well, I mean, from an artist's perspective, I think part of it is that we all need to check our egos at the door. It's that, I know better than anybody, when you get a group of artists here trying to make a plan. But we all must accede to the notion that we do not have the best idea in the room. The willingness to listen to others and to do that purposefully and meaningfully and honestly is, I think, one of the important steps for the artistic community to engage in order to help move the field and our concurrent fields forward.
Thank you. And David, I just want to say the reason we did all that stuff at Igor in the 80s was so my band would have a place to play. So thank you for what you're doing with the music economy. I'll let you wrap it up.
Well, I mean, I just would like to wrap that up with, you know, I think the community needs to put a focus on developing strong leaders. I think it's good to have democratic commissions and things to talk about it, but at the end of the day, we need people that have vision and leaders. I think that we're, you know, very fortunate that we have a brand new mayor who's putting something like this on, so that's the kind of leadership that we need. I'd say Paul has been a great leader in this community for a number of years. We just need more people like that, like Go-Be-Offs. And I think there's a lot of resources. I know in the nonprofit world that some of us live in, there's some great leadership resources, but I think with the art programs seem to get left behind a little bit. So I think you know, finding ways to develop leaders that have passion about this area and are really invigorated to make changes and make the future better is something that we really need.
Thank you. I think we've got time for one more round of that, if everybody will go along. What's happening, I see, in the arts is a real people are cross-pollinating, and dancers are working with theater people, and organizations are reaching out, representing a lot of different size organizations, different types of organizations. Do you think we get caught in our box sometimes, and how do we break out of our box to look at the arts that are actually happening out there with where artists want to go? Too vague a question, Margaret? You know?
Yes, I jot down, that wasn't my favorite question you posed. But, no, I think that this should be artist-driven, and there's already so much that has happened that artists are already working together from different disciplines. Just coming up, I want to give a shout out to the Tampa International Airport, and I'm really blaming on for example, we're bringing Nick Cave. This is an Alvin Ailey trained dancer who builds sound suits and creates performances and engagements with communities. Sarah Howard on the staff of the Institute for Research and Art, the Contemporary Art Museum, produced the Music Box Project in Sulphur Springs, where New Orleans Airlift came and built houses that students could come, artists could come, community members could come, local people in the community actually helped build the structures that was on the grounds of the community stepping stones. Those are examples of artist-driven interdisciplinary projects, and I could list many, many more, but there's two.
Anybody else want to take?
I mean, I think I'll just go back to case in point, what I had shared before. We're doing some of this already. I mean, and it's happening, and that information is not out there. I mean, art museums long have since had long relationships with performing arts groups and musical groups. We have good relationships with USF and UT right now on music performances, trying to expand that opportunity into theater and performance in general. I mean, this is happening. It's already here. And yes, we end up sometimes living in our own, artistic box and collaborating more with others that look a little bit more like ourselves. But it doesn't preclude that crossover. And I think it really is. It's going to be the community and driving all the artists to work together. But I think it's already happening.
It is happening. I don't disagree. Somebody said, Jose Valente said to me today, he said, is there anybody that Sage Works doesn't partner with? And I said, I'm not sure that there is. But we do get stuck in our own body. If it's not for lack of wanting to get out there, wanting to make a new program, but I am the sole full-time staff member of this organization. And I have my hands full. So it's as artists and as administrators, we keep a lot of balls in the air. And the problem is, you don't know when you don't catch a ball, which one's going to bounce back to you, and which one's going to just crash all over the ground. So we try to get out there and engage as much as we can. Operational support is the best way to help organizations reach out and do other things. But I agree it's happening, but I do think it should happen more. I would like to make it happen more. I'm just struggling to find a way to figure out how to do that.
Dave, will you wrap it up?
It's probably been mentioned a couple times, but I think, the big picture that, the more we all collectively look at this as an ecosystem and we're all connected in some way or the other, I just think having that mindset makes these collaborations a lot easier. And just going into it that it's not necessarily something that may work out 100% in our favor, and our stakeholders looking at it, why'd you do that? But I think we all feel good at the end of the day knowing that it was something that we were progressing forward and working together. But it is tricky, it is hard to look and spend time that kind of steps out of maybe what your core focus of your organization is or what your art group is. But again, I just think having that mindset of we're all part of an ecosystem and everything we do helps everybody else is a good way to look at it and make it smoother.
I want to thank everybody on this panel. We can go on for an hour or two with this panel, but we've got two more. So thank you all so much. If we can get our next panel, Susanna, Martine, Dean, and James. statement, and then we'll do some questions, and we'll start with Susanna Wade with the TVECA. Thank you, Susanna.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you very much to the mayor for prioritizing the arts, and to the Gobiovs and to Bill Carlson for helping to get this very important forum together. If you look at some of the great cities in the world, London, Paris, Hong Kong, New York, Washington, D.C., Miami, all places where I have lived and worked, these are all cities that value fostering a strong business and creative, holistic ecosystem. Back in 2001, when my husband and I chose to move to Tampa, and we firmly believe even more so now, all the elements are here for Tampa, as the mayor said, not to be chasing these cities, but take its place, take our place among them. To be what I would call an ACE city, arts, cultural, and entertainment destination. Just look at the enviable plethora of what have become daily and nightly offerings, choices of museums, galleries, theater, musical events, all these artistic offerings. You know, whether you're a sports fan or not, these are going to be looked at, and the world will be watching in February of 2021 as the Super Bowl brings visitors and media from around the world. There are going to be highlights and scenes from Tampa broadcast all over the U.S. and beyond. Now is the time to get ready, so that a year and a half from now, Tampa arts and culture take their place as vital partners in our scene, in our city, alongside of businesses, so that we're viewed as competitive and thriving on the world stage. Specifically, in the next few years, I believe that arts needs to be positioned in a much larger way. We may not have to go as far as an Art Basel Tampa, but we do need to throw ourselves, all of us, wholeheartedly to support our museums, galleries, festivals, fairs, and cultural events in a powerful effort to attract attention, press, wider audiences, higher numbers, and deeper levels of engagement. We should be at a point where arts and culture no longer need to prove the value of what they are and what they deliver. Some specific ideas that I'd love to see grow. I'd like to see USF Graphics Studio be tied in more closely to downtown Tampa. Graphics Studio is an economic engine. It has for over 50 years drawn some of the world's top artists to produce work that is sold on the national and international markets. We should be making much more of this opportunity. We should greet these globally famous artists like Christian Markley and Tavares Strachan and others like them with higher visibility into the heart of the city of Tampa, and promote and publicize the fact that they're here and why they are here, and leverage that to a wider audience. I think we also need to find ways for our artists to increase their engagement with the local community, businesses, and also the tourist market. Tampa artist studios are so spread out, it really calls for a creative solution to focus critical mass in centralized location. We should also address head-on the needs of artists for spaces and places to exhibit and interact with audiences. I have over 50 businesses that partner with TVECA. This is our responsibility. We occupy these spaces. It's up to us to help look for them and engage for the artists. We should look at where and who we have these collaborative spaces to share in a unique way with our artists, and we should also create pathways for our emerging artists. The research also highlights, from a business perspective, the enormous potential for the arts to drive and support commercial activity, and particularly tourism. In fact, the trend is for the numbers to grow of tourists engaged with the arts. And if those visitors are from out of town, they tend to stay longer and they spend more money. And they demand diverse and authentic cultural experiences. So if the arts are increasingly on the itinerary for visitors, we need to prioritize and allocate resources and marketing efforts to promote our cultural offerings and better position Tampa as an arts and cultural and entertainment destination. And as some of the others on the panel before me have said, we need to figure out how to collectively speak in a more unified voice so that our messaging is clear and persuasive and better reflects as a point of pride Tampa's arts and culture. And representing businesses, I say to you, we need to put our money where our mouth is and provide some hardcore financial support in order for our wonderful arts and cultural organizations like the Tampa Museum of Art, like USF Graphic Studio, like the Gasparilla Music Festival, like Carla Hartley's Stageworks, in order for them to continue to engage and entertain and inspire us all.
Thank you, Suzanne. Next is Martine Collier, Hillsborough County Arts Council.
So as a panelist, I was instructed to begin this program tonight by giving you my grand vision for arts and culture in this community. And I think that would be very arrogant of me. I've only been in town for 2 years, and I don't think it should be my grand vision. I think it should be all of yours. I agree with our mayor that Tampa has a diversity of arts and cultural organizations that would make any city proud. And we don't need to be chasing other communities because there's so much that's unique here, and I agree that we do need to do a better job of telling our story. However, unlike many other arts-focused cities, Tampa does not currently have a cultural plan. Such plans are developed through the participation of many people representing diverse constituencies and points of view. Based on my past experience in other communities, having such a plan is essential to getting everyone, artists, cultural organizations, media, government, private industry, educational institutions, foundations, you name it. Getting everyone pulling in the same direction, which is critical if you're going to move forward. Now, we have a lot of people in this community that care deeply about arts and culture, many of whom are here tonight, either up on the stage or sitting in the audience. But I don't think currently we have a true shared vision. Now, a cultural plan provides this framework and defines what we want to happen in the future, 3 years, 5 years, and more. A cultural plan encourages more collaboration, defines desired outcomes, and ensures that scarce resources are being used as efficiently and effectively as possible. If you look nationally at cities that are achieving the most economic benefits from their cultural sector, you will see that most of them have a cultural plan in place guiding these efforts. We don't need their plan. We need our own plan, something as unique as arts and culture in Tampa. And I would hope that one of the goals of the plan would be to actively recruit Americans for the Arts to hold their national convention in Tampa. That's what the mayor was talking about having them come to us. They have never come to Tampa. We've got this beautiful Riverwalk. We've got a gorgeous convention center, and they've never been here. So this is something we can start working on now. Not only would that be a huge economic development engine, because that convention brings a lot of money into a community, it would give us the opportunity to highlight all the wonderful things, the unique Tampa things that are going on this community to a national audience. And again, we aren't chasing anybody else. We just need a plan to define how we can be the best Tampa arts and culture there is. And I want to add my thanks to the Gobiovs and to Bill Carlson, who is the newest member of the Arts Council Board, and to all of you for being here tonight, and especially thanks to Mayor Castor for making the arts a priority in our community.
Thank you, Martine. Next is Dean Mitchell, wonderful artists. Dean, thank you for being here.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to personally thank Bill Carlson for actually extending this invitation to me. I've been here for about 10 years in the Tampa Bay area with my family, and it's a beautiful city. It truly is a remarkable city. It has a lot to offer. The development in Channelside District, the river walks, I have certainly enjoyed all of this. Now, I am a practicing artist, so this whole business engine thing is very appealing to me. I support my family with my work. I sell my work internationally and nationally. And that is not easy for artists. I think there truly needs to be an educational component to this. People support what they understand. If they do not understand it, they will not support it. Not only do they have to be educated, but there has to be some emotional reason to support it. Aside from that, there needs to be, artists also need to be responsible as well, to understand that it is a business. Art is a business, just like every other business. And if you approach it that way, most of us can make a decent living and a grassroots living. Some of us go on to be better depending on our connections and how we market ourselves, because marketing is a huge part of it. What's in the name? Tampa Bay has to consider what will ground this cultural movement. Will there be a cultural district? What will be in that cultural district? Who will be able to afford to live in those cultural districts? Are those, exactly, yeah. Because, as we all know, as developers move in, so does the real estate prices. So where does that leave the creative class? I, myself, have been truly blessed, but the way I have been blessed is I've marketed myself. As a business person, I think there could be seminars, business seminars for artists. Aside from just your craft, there needs to be courses in business. I think that the business community can also learn from practicing artists coming in and giving lectures, explaining to them what they do, how they build their business, how to engage the public more in a more emotional, personal way. Because I can tell you, if you're poor, first of all, you're going to look at your wallet and can I afford this or can I afford that? And the way you reach people who are poor, you let them know that the arts creates, it can lift you out of poverty, out of mental poverty. It can stimulate your imagination. It can do all kinds of things. I grew up very poor, and it was my grandmother who let me hang my paintings up in her home. That was my first gallery experience, was a personal experience. Those are the kinds of personal stories that you can tell communities that feels disenfranchised, that feel that they can be a part of the creative process. So I think there's just so many different ways. I think that it's an open canvas, and we need to be open to all kinds of ideas. You can use churches. There's so many different grassroots ways that you can reach people, and I'm just excited about what is happening here with the arts here. I'm thrilled to be in Tampa Bay, and I hope that I can offer any assistance any way I can to help move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. And finally, James Olson of Agile Thought. James.
Good evening. Thank you all for allowing me to participate on this panel discussion. I think I bring a little bit different perspective. We have the artist sitting next to me. I'm sitting on the business side of the equation with a high school level saxophone skill. And I think as far as the grand vision goes...
Pull your mic just a little closer to you.
I'm sorry.
Use your mic.
Yep, cool. I'm representing 500 very passionate, creative team members who on a daily basis get together and work in agile teams to develop customized software for Fortune 1000 clients right here in Tampa. We've been based here for over 14 years. Our growth rate has been 30% year on year, so we're very thankful for that. And the question then is, what does that mean for Tampa? Tampa. And this year, we will be creating 150 new jobs based in this area. So I just want to make sure the mayor heard that. So while we're fiercely proud of that success, one of the challenges that we have is in attracting and retaining the right creative talent, you know, creative minds, creative thinking, and decision makers that we need to drive our software business. Things have changed quite a bit in the software world. As you've heard a lot about AI and machine learning and other things that mostly no one in this room probably understands, including myself. But it's so rapid, that change. The aptitude and the backgrounds and the skill sets of the people that we employ have also changed dramatically. No longer are we focused on hiring the engineers and the mathematicians, while those are key skill sets. We're looking for the creative thinkers, right? The designers, people that can participate in facilitated sessions to really understand the true business outcomes and the human-centered design that needs to occur within the software for it to be effective. So that's dramatically changed who we look for and how we go about marketing ourselves and attracting people. Critical to that success is having a very vibrant and active arts community in Tampa. It is a direct correlation between our people coming in or staying, you know, whether or not they want to live in Tampa. Is this a place for their kids to grow up? Can they be engaged? Can they, outside of the office, express themselves and get involved with things that, you know, ultimately allow them to become more effective, productive, creative employees? So, you know, standing from the business side of that equation, I can't stress enough the importance of this gathering tonight and starting to chart the future and the growth for Tampa from a arts perspective.
As a guy who had a job title called Creative Industries Manager back in 2000 next to Richard, Florida, I still don't know if we've done a great job of attracting the creative class here. And I love the fact that you're talking about, you're looking for creatives, not just numbers people and not just engineers. I was wondering, just two-pronged question. You can touch on any one of them. We can go down the panel. One, how do we attract more of the creative class here? Is it a marketing thing? Is it finding more jobs for them? And two, I think we talk about selling the arts to our business community, but I still don't necessarily see a business community getting the fact that the arts are as big an economic driver as, say, sports or other things. I'm leaving, you guys can touch on any of those, but I really want to talk about the creative class and making this a more attractive place for that. Want to start down here, Susanna?
So first I'd like to address your second part of your question, Paul, which is, are we doing a good job? Do businesses understand? This year at TBVCA, we're the first business committee for the arts established 30 years ago. So we're celebrating our 30th anniversary. And the business committees for the arts were started by the late David Rockefeller in the 1960s in New York. We are part of the private sector network and national partnership movement of, as Martine said, Americans for the Arts. We are the Americans for the Arts organization here in Tampa Bay. And so for all those decades, this has been our mission, this has been our message, this has been the vision, and certainly if you talk to our partners, who are a number of law firms and CEOs of other businesses, they believe very strongly that it makes good business sense, and it's our tagline. The arts are good for business, and business is good for the arts, and that it's strategically important to align businesses with the arts and view the arts as the economic engine that they are. Then to address your first. Yeah. So how do we attract the right type of potential workforce? The creative skills, as James was saying, that are needed, the people that think out of the box, the people that have the critical thinking skills. We have a tremendous brain trust in our two universities and beyond in our colleges, right here in the Tampa Bay area. So I think we should be addressing those graduates of those universities, those students of the colleges. And we take it from even earlier on. We raise money for scholarships for higher education in the arts for high school students. And so I think that we need to start when they're young and hopefully say, we're behind you, we believe in this, set a good example, demonstrate leadership, and have them then stay or come back. Because those are the types of people that we want to keep and attract here in the Tampa Bay area.
So I think most of you are familiar with the Arts and Economic Impact Study that we released in 2017. And we did those numbers. We worked with Americans for the Arts for it. We did it by Hillsborough County. We did a special city of Tampa. And then we did Tampa, a Hillsborough, Pinellas combined version. So we showed those statistics in several different ways. There was an increase. The last time the study was done in 2009, jobs in the nonprofit sector were 4,105. This time, 2017, that had increased to 14,962. So, but again, that is strictly the nonprofit sector. The Creative Industries Report, also produced by Americans for the Arts, includes not only the nonprofit cultural sector, but also for-profit companies such as film, architecture, and design firms. The total number of arts-related businesses in 2015 to 2017 stayed roughly the same in Hillsborough County, about 3,500. But what was remarkable is that the workforce employed in the creative sector was reported as 13,210 in 2015. It almost doubled in 2017. We're going up to almost 24,000. And that's really a remarkable increase. So the number of businesses arts-related stayed the same, but the number of people working in them doubled. Now the categories with the biggest increases were design and photography. And I would hope that this could be a selling point to attract even more creatives, more creative industries, more arts-related for-profit businesses to the community. So we can't forget that we've got another sector of for-profit cultural organizations, businesses that we track separately from our nonprofits.
Anything you want to add to that, Dean?
I just pulled up some statistics on my phone here. New York State arts cultural industries generated $114 billion to the state's economy, employed 462,584, and awarded $46.7 billion in compensation. And it says here, $760 billion generated by the arts nationwide. So that tells you that somebody's making some money. So I wonder about what would attract the creative class is, first of all, affordability for housing especially. And stimulating interest from the people who can also support it. As we all know, if you are producing art, you have to consider who will be your client, who will want to buy what I create. Why will they want to spend their hard-earned money on what I create? That's why I think an educational component is necessary. Now, most people do not realize the impact of their daily lives that artists have on their lives. The homes you live in, the cars you drive, the clothes you wear. The reason I know all these things because I majored in illustration and minored in advertising. I also took a lot of classes in design. There is an educational component for the business community to understand that the creative process creates new concepts and new ideas for new jobs. When you think about, let's just think about Disney. Disney started with a cartoon. Jesus, now it's an empire. from a man's vision, from a man's creativity. Merrimack's, Touchstone, that's all Disney. Aside from that, that also carried over into the performing arts. Actors, musicians. When, I had a cousin who said, well, I really don't like classical music. And I said, but you listen to classical music all the time when you watch a movie. You do love classical music. These are the components that begin to connect the dots where people realize that these things enhance their way of life. They make you feel better about being alive. They can pull you out of despair. This is what art does. It cannot just be about money. You have to reach people on a more personal, emotional level so that they understand. All the analytics all day long. But unless you can truly reach people on an emotional, spiritual level about why they should engage the arts, we will be back here again at this point. The level for them to support it. And when you do that, the artists, they smile, they grow, their creativity grows. Your community, you will see your landscape change. Your communities change. You will see a transformation not only in attitude, but in less violence. You will see the humanities come alive like you've never seen. That's what supporting art is all about. It teaches you empathy for your fellow man. It teaches you not only the creative process, but how we are all human beings and we all want a better way of life. That's what the arts are about. And if you can reach people on that level, I guarantee you, you will get the support you need, not only just here locally, you will get it nationally and internationally. Tampa Bay is a beautiful city. It has everything here. It has everything. All it needs is for people to have the desire and the understanding why they should support it.
So on the topic of attracting talent to Tampa, and specifically to our company, I've had many opportunities to meet with the Economic Development Council of Tampa and look at companies that are potentially moving their headquarters now here, setting up significant operations and bringing their employees or hiring new employees here. And then also for our own organization, we try to recruit the top talent. And at 500 plus people now, we're starting to expand our boundaries, as you can imagine, and reaching out across the U.S. And when people come in and see Tampa and try to experience that and try to make a life choice about whether they want to work with our company or live here. After we cover the first topic, which is hurricanes, we quickly get to the question about what can my kids do here? What's the quality of the schools? What do we have to do? How do we keep engaged? What's happening in Tampa, right? And they're referencing to a great extent the arts community and what it has to offer. And the discussion that we've had within our own organization in reaching out to these folks and talking about what's in it for their kids, I generally think that, for a long time we've talked about STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and math, that really underpins a lot of our policy for education and the curriculum design around the courses. I really do feel that a movement towards incorporating the arts into that is a formal piece of that, moving STEM to STEAM. As a thought do with our young people, we go engage them in code camp. Our employees, our clients, or just any other citizen in Tampa can bring their kids in and learn how to build software. And again, it's not about ones and zeros. It's about design, human-centered, experiential design. And the kids have a blast doing it. And it's that kind of thing where, all of a sudden kids think, yeah, this isn't just, you know, what I see in the movies, you know, coding. It's about being creative and expressing yourself, capturing what other people are trying to explain, what their needs are, and building something that's ultimately useful, right? So that's a really exciting way to engage the young folks. As we move up a level to the universities, I think that we could do a much better job of educating those that are involved in you know, creative activities, that there are career options for them that they may never consider. I'm thinking maybe some people in the room here never really thought I'd be talking about how much I desperately want to hire artists and creative thinkers as part of a software development company, right? But that's exactly who we're hiring. Right? I can teach you the technology later. We need you to think in a different way and think about the future, right? So, you know, with that in mind, you know, educating folks to say, look, you can go to work, you can express yourself, you can create, you can, you know, build new things, and you know, there are many paths that you can find in business that, you know, reward you for that skill set, that aptitude. You know, the third area I think I just add on to, and I know it's been mentioned before with regard to Tampa and the attraction of it. I don't think we as a community take credit for what's been done. Many of these panel members have worked very hard and contribute on a daily basis to the arts. I've been in Tampa for 10 years. Before that, I lived in Denver, Washington, D.C., and Chicago, all fairly rich culturally. And I just, for the last 10 years, have thought Tampa has underserved itself as far as taking credit for all the things that are going on here and communicating what's available to everybody.
I want to thank Susanna, Martine, Dean, and James. We could go on longer, but we've done our time, and I want to make sure we get to everybody tonight. Thank you all so much for being wonderful. And thanks to the audience for being great. If we can get our next panel on our way over here, we'll move right over. All right, one more panel and 30 more minutes, and then we'll go to some questions and we'll bring back the mayor. So thank you all very much. This panel is on growing the grassroots movement, and we've got 5 panelists up here, and let's see what our order is. I want to start with John Brewer of Maven Market Channel District. Did I say it right? Just a brief statement.
I've been a Tampa native.
I'm not sure. Pull up my career close.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Yes?
Loan her one of their. Let her hear my.
Sure. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, hi. I'm a Tampa native and very passionate about the arts. I've been an artist first and foremost. I did all types of commissions for murals, chalk art, chalk art at the Hyde Park chalk art festivals, and then I got into marketing, kind of what the other gentleman was saying before. Then I got into marketing branding and was interviewed by this app called Crowdfire. They said, what a strange, transition. Well, I think it's all about collaboration, is what I'm trying to say. I think it's a full spectrum about marketing, about branding, about working with other artists. It's about relationships. Of course, money is important, but in this case, I met with a gentleman in the Channel District who said he'd like to maybe start a market, no additional funding, got an event insurance policy, and just a grassroots completely market. We were at the Tampa Bay Times, 2 months later, expanded Tampa's Downtown Urban Excellence Awards, and I think what everyone was talking about is key, because through that, the Italian Club, an in-house theater group, Beyond Live Theater, reached out to me about doing a collaboration with them. A musical and live market encompassing all of the arts, and 80% of what I do is meetings, networking, meeting other artists, collaborating, and I think that if we could all work together as a community, it would just be wonderful, because I think so many people are in it for the wrong reason, and I could go on and on and on, but it's just a passion of mine. We have a waiting list of like 600 people, but it's not about that. It's about, I call them family, because we're a community, and we all have the same vision. And we've done, with the Ybor State Chamber of Commerce, we did a market hub with the Tico streetcar, and the Italian Club, and I think that if that could just continue on and on, I have a meeting with the Urban Development Committee tomorrow. That's all I do. I live and breathe for bringing, that's our actual philosophy, is bringing community and culture, where community meets culture. And I think that, like in Seattle, some of the murals that are popping up, even in South Tampa, that brings culture to every neighborhood. I think that I would just like to see a committee of people who all work together to collaborate with one another, rather than a lot of those markets and events that pop up that are all about charging vendors astronomical amounts. And I think when you talk about businesses and how they can benefit the sponsorships, for example, we've had businesses come to us and say, I want to be on your flyers, I want to be on your posters because I see them everywhere. So it's about benefiting the community, and I've dedicated the last 5 years of my life to, it's not a moneymaker like the Tampa Tribune article said, should we leave that out? I said, yeah. But you have to have passion, and a true passion and commitment to culture and community, and I would love to join forces with everyone and everyone. So,
Jennifer, thank you. We've got Noel Mason next, Arts Associate Professor at USF, co-founder director of the Parallelogram Gallery. Good to have you.
Thank you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about just a vision for Tampa in terms of ideas around critical mass and how important it is to create, to grow the community in such a way that we create this critical mass of people, people who are artists as well as supporters of the arts. So including galleries, museums, collectors, art foundations, theaters and venues to support all levels of art production and education, as well as to foster greater interest in the arts. Critical mass is important, as I see the arts community in Tampa as being somewhat atomized at this stage, and it's led to areas of real kind of marginalization of certain artist communities. And so ideally, art and cultural production of all kinds could be central to the thriving urban city of Tampa, as it enriches the lives of those who participate in it, both as maker and as audience. In a city such as Tampa, I see many of the greatest gains coming from grassroots organizations, such as Tempest Projects, which is in its 10th year now. An artist residency, in which we have national and international artists come, spend a month creating work. They're given a stipend and allowed to have a space to show the work at the end of the month. As well as Kunsthaus, which is a feminist nonprofit gallery in Seminole Heights. And then there's a growing community of artist-run spaces, like my own Parallelogram Gallery, another professor at USF runs a gallery called Coco Hyundai, and Quaid Gallery. So this connectivity may come from projects such as the Seminole Heights Art Tour, which has begun a few years ago, and it is, I think, important to introducing community at large to many of the studio artists and spaces that exist within Tampa's Seminole Heights district. More than anything, artists need supporters. They need people who are interested in buying art and supporting arts organizations, from the small individual studio artists through artist-run and nonprofit spaces to larger museums or educational institutions. As a critical mass must come from people who are interested in participating, and this interested public is at its core made through exposure and education. And so my hope is that as the community starts to grow, there will be a somewhat symbiotic effect, right, to create this critical mass.
Thank you. Sarah Lee is next, and an artist activist and program director at Community Tampa Bay.
Thank you. Good evening, incredible humans. As an artist activist, for me, my art is not separate from my activism. They're both one and the same, consistently, simultaneously, and all at once. So that said, for me, my greatest vision for Tampa Bay is that art will be represented and localized in communities without the fear of gentrification, with adequate and accurate representation of minority communities, and with accurate and adequate representation of youth voice. We cannot talk about a vision without talking about youth voice. Our young humans are consistently producing art no matter where they are. The only problem is we refuse to see it. Adults have been practicing adultism since the beginning of time. We're really good at what we do. We need to deconstruct that behavior and recognize what young humans do and make them leaders in this current moment. We're constantly talking about, and I appreciate the conversation, we're constantly talking about what collaboration would look like, what it would be like to have commissions and communities, so on and so forth, but art by itself creates community. But if we don't include the people who are already artists in that space, we are automatically excluding communities regardless of whether it is intentional or not. We must be intentional in the communities that we include and ensure that we are including all communities in the bargain, all the way from young humans who are immigrants to all the way to young humans who are LGBTQ+. When we fail to do that is when we end up having heavily institutionalized artistic platforms that do not provide access to everyone, including themselves. So my vision for Tampa Bay is that we get rid of all that and do it right.
Noah, Delaney, you have to follow that. Noah's an artist, welcome.
Thanks for having me, and thanks to everyone for coming, and I'd like to say that I really appreciate listening to everyone's great ideas. I think I hear a lot of things that I was thinking going into this talk. But from my perspective as an artist, I've grown my practice in a grassroots manner. I wasn't an academic artist, it's something that I've just always done. The things that helped me, I think, are more important than the things I think we all need, because they've been proven to have assisted me in my journey. So the things that I look back on as helpful to my progress, even in just the past 2 years, are media exposure. It's most important for telling the story. I think telling the story better sums it all up. That connects artists with other artists. It connects artists with venues. It connects artists with business. It connects the community. Another thing that was very helpful to me was having a space, a studio space that had other artists included. So having close proximity to other practicing artists. It's very inspiring, sharing ideas. So obviously having a space like that for artists is important. People knowing that there are spaces like that for artists is important, which ties back to the media exposure. And if no one knows that there are spaces available, then those spaces won't be used to their full potential. I think it's also useful for connecting artists and the ideas of why art is important across different practices. I've noticed with my art, I've reached, last year I had a video that a video about my art went viral on the internet, and I had over 1 billion video views. The interest that generated from other artists that appreciated my work, from people in the industry. I use aluminum cans to create my artwork. So I've been approached by aluminum can manufacturers. I've been approached by the Aluminum Federation of the UK. I've interviewed with the Russian Aluminum Association. It's across the board. It's reaching those people is important, and it was the media exposure that made it possible. So, and that's gone on to help me do other exhibits, to exhibit my artwork internationally. And I think it's important locally also. The story, people need to be reminded about why art is important. And the story is what reminds them, and what connects them with the art and with the artist, connects artists with each other, and it grows the art naturally. It grows it in a grassroots kind of manner. Thank you.
Michael Hooker, artist, owner of Lector Social Club.
Hi. So I just want to echo the appreciation that's already been expressed to those who have made this make possible, and then also pay respect to the indigenous people and lands upon which we sit. I don't have a grand vision to share with you tonight, but I do have a bottom-to-top strategy that may help bring the resources that we already have in Tampa to a more visible space, more accessible to artists and the public in general. So one approach would engage the city's cooperation to make a citywide, a citywide campaign to bring relevant information like grant money, jobs, venues, and organizations that artists can work with to a more accessible space. And I should just read this to you. This can be done in a number of ways, like a series of in-person skill-sharing events where artists and professionals take office hours with local artists, and perhaps in different public spaces throughout the city, giving professional and practical advice, or even receiving feedback on current art projects, would both support artists' individual needs and provide useful data about specific resources that its arts community truly is lacking, instead of imagining what they need from the top down on. From here, we can begin to identify and coordinate around mutual goals. So if there's a large percentage of people who are constantly looking for community art space, steps can be taken to assess whether we need better public transportation to existing spaces or an entirely new center altogether. And these events can be reinforced through small public art projects, using creative spaces around the city to advertise them while potentially promoting local artists' work. And all this should, of course, be online and more accessible online. But this way, the city itself becomes a cooperative resource on multiple levels. And once concrete actions are taken that signal to artists that their feedback is important and their work is valuable, I think there'll be more opportunities to collaborate on new projects, particularly those that conceive of the city as a site for art, which is a direction I think would be pretty exciting for Tampa to take.
I want to throw this out to the group, but not everyone has to answer. If you have an answer, step up. But I wanted to ask, what are the missing pieces of the puzzle for individual artists in Tampa, and what are some of the reasons artists leave, and what can we do to keep them around? Would you like to start? Right. Jonathan?
I was just going to pick on something he said about marketing and exposing artists. I find it baffling, but I think I'm one of the only people that, well, entities that does this and not boasting it. I'm just saying that it has been just a completely amazing tool. I make a marketing video highlights of each artist that's involved in any event. It gives a story behind the artist as well as what they create, and it builds a buzz, you know. And we've had people who show up to events and say, where can I find this that I saw in the video? You know, it completely, it's giving them that advertising and branding that they need before they even get there. Second of all, I think that every event, to keep the artists here, you've got to have people. And you can't just target one demographic, and like you were saying about age. I've had artists that will have this 800 waiting list, and it doesn't matter what order for me. It's about variety and giving young people to old, you know, a chance. Someone who took buckets and they created bucket drums out of them, you know, bucket sounds, to people who make industrial repurposed lamps from just amazing things, from fine art to everything. And final thing I'm going to say is the owner of the property in which I started the first event on said, Jennifer, you're just not charging enough, and you spend way too much on advertising and the decorations and the photo board. I said, but that's what makes it special. I mean, they said, you're not, the vendors make more than you. I said, I don't care. And, you know, it's about, I believe, creating something that there's something for everyone. Because the artists are there to, to showcase their work. We're there to show that we have art and culture. And so we have things for all ages, and we laugh at the four-legged variety as well. You know, little stations for dogs, photo corners, interactive art activities, and everything's free. It's free to come to. And I think that's a lot too, is that you have to appeal to all ages and give everyone a chance. You know, not just the people who have been in it for years, like you said, who are older, but the young just starting out. I had one that was 12 years old, and I said, I love it. You know.
Yeah, so I deal with a lot of artists who are coming here from other places to go to graduate school, and then making the decisions once they leave graduate school, or once they finish graduate school, whether to stay or whether to go. Honestly, there's a couple of words that come up a lot, and those are bike lane and sidewalk. One of Tampa's, I think, largest problems is infrastructure. It was built for a car. It means that it's going to keep communities away from each other by nature of the way that the city has been constructed. And so somehow we need to figure out either how to bring people into an urban center or create some way for people to move between downtown and USF, for instance.
Public transport.
Public transportation would be a great one. A well-functioning bus system, maybe, before public transportation, takes a lot of, we can get some buses on the road, right? So something that, this is, for the artists that I talk to, this is the #1 problem. They want to live in a place where they can walk out and walk into their community. And
I think in Tampa, access is not equitable, right? I identify as, I'm a spoken word poet, and I identify as a masculine performing lesbian. I'm an immigrant, I'm Indian, I'm also Muslim. So I check off the boxes for a lot of places that are trying to do diversity. So it's not hard for me to get a gig, either nationally or internationally. And excuse the lack of modesty, I also look the way I look, so it works out. But at the same time, I'm a safe entity. I speak English so well, despite the fact that I'm not from here. I have 3 master's degrees. It's cute, right? In a lot of spaces, all of these things are attractive, but they're also safe. So it feels for a lot, that's my privilege, and that's a lot of privilege to have as a spoken word poet. A lot of my counterparts don't have the same privileges that I enjoy. Their identities are too political. Their identities are too unsafe. Their identities are so far right stereotyped that even in the most leftist of spaces, they are not allowed into, right? That access, that lack of access in Tampa, which is such a political hotbed, this should not be the space where those things are happening. This should not be the space where we are looking for safe humans, right? And clearly, I'm 100% not in, I think it was strategic, I'm clearly not 100% in the institution, despite the fact that I have been previously institutionalized. Not like that, I mean like, in the academic institution is what I mean, which I mean, no harm, no foul. But that's what I mean, right? So access is not equitable, and it must be intentional. Who we are putting in our spaces must be intentional. The people most marginalized must have spaces within which they can practice their art. It is not free for all. It is not accessible to all. We can use that as a marketing tool, but it's not the truth.
I agree that access, both transportation-wise and culturally acceptance-wise, are both very important. And I think that having a livable city is an important part of having a city where people want to stay for any reason, whether it be to make art or to raise a family. But I think just as important is to cultivate the next generation of artists that will grow up in Tampa and create art in Tampa. Obviously, embracing the young people and inspiring young artists, I think, is important. I do a lot of my work, besides making art, is describing and educating people about my art, and talking about how we all know art is important for attracting people to go downtown or to go walk around and see a mural or street art. But the creative process is important for a lot more profound reasons. The education, the way that the creative process can be used the same way by a painter, a dancer, a musician, or a lawyer. Lawyers interpret the law. So if you're trained to observe and interpret something, it can be applied across a wide range of practice. So that's a big narrative behind my work, and I think that's something that you can reach out to young people with. It's also something that that everyone can appreciate, and I think it shows a value in art, not by selling it, or not it's by sharing it. And circling back to my first point, is that the story needs to be told for it to take root, and that's what I think.
I agree with everything you said, and I'm interested in the next question.
The next question is, and I start with you, we'll work our way back down. What opportunities excite you right now in Tampa in the arts, and what opportunities do you wish were available? You can answer either or both.
Can you repeat the first part of the question?
What opportunities excite you right now in Tampa in the arts?
So I'm excited that we have the opportunity to not make mistakes that other cities have made in terms of public transportation, in terms of development and affordable housing. We have an opportunity to not chase other cities, but to go, oh yeah, you screwed up there, we're not going to do that. And I think that's a real rich space for us to pay attention to, because there's still developments that are happening that are displacing folks. And then I'd like to see more grant money. I'd like to see more people grant money for participatory arts,
together.
And everybody, we've got about 30 seconds for each of your responses, so I'm sorry to make it tight, but we've got a lot of people to ask questions.
What was the question, the first one?
Oh, any questions you want to know? What excites you right now about the arts in Tampa, or do you have any opportunities you wish were available?
Well, I'm excited by the development that Tampa's, the booming development that Tampa's experiencing, and I hope that that'll continue to create more opportunities for artists as the development embraces art through street art, through design, through architecture. That's looking forward. I think that's the most exciting thing for me.
Just about 30 seconds to respond. Go ahead, Sam.
Okay.
Sure.
I think there's been developing a strong connection between politics and art in Tampa, and that has been on the rise, very, very, very public spaces. And the more we activate public spaces with both art and politics, the more artistic and political those spaces become. I'm excited to see that.
Cheap and available space. That's like a big one. People are moving out of Manhattan. People left a long time ago, but they're moving out of the boroughs now because there isn't cheap and available space. And I've met some New Yorkers moving down here, artists who are interested in, being able to have a space where they can actually make work and live in a place where they don't have to work a 60-hour week at a job to pay for that space.
10, 20 seconds. Last call, and then we'll take you
Just
after that.
basically, to piggyback on what everyone was saying, like I said, I'm Tampa native. My mom did the Gasparilla art shows when I was 5, and I tagged along. And as far as growth, it's just been amazing when you talk about growth to see where we've come since then. And I love what you just said about activating spaces. I'm almost obsessed with, like, all of my daughters. Do I have to schedule time to sit down with you and hang out with you? Because, like I said, I started the Channel District, and now, we've worked with the Italian Club. And I believe it's in activating the city's large spaces. And I know there's been so many attempts at doing that, but I think it's that whole community over competition and collaborating and coming together. And every wonderful entity project I've been involved in has been just that, collaborating.
It's been great. We're going to move on to our questions because we got a lot of folks out there I think have questions, and then we'll get the mayor back up. Thank you, Noel, Sam, Noah, Michael, Jennifer, our planner, for the panel. We're going to invite folks to ask questions. We've got our panelists standing by, so if you want to address to a certain panelist, let us know. We'll drag them up here. If you want to talk in general, ask a general question, we'll try to find a responder for you. And we've got some folks moving around with microphones.
Hi. I'm Will Glenn. I'm with the Tampa International Fringe Festival. And I just have just 2 quick things that I'll say in under a minute. One question is, what can we do to address the space issue? I've seen in other cities we have tons of vacant spaces in Ybor City and downtown, various different parts of the city. One of the things that I've seen in other cities is that the city incentivizes or otherwise enables those business people that own those, I assume they're real estate people, that own those empty spaces to make them available to artists. And I don't see any reason why that couldn't happen here. The other thought that I have is just something that Neil Gobioff said at the previous Forum for the Arts, which is what can we do and what, I guess, specifically can you, Mayor Castro, do to change the culture in Tampa from a culture of no to a culture of yes.
We've got one here, and I just want to say, I think one of the issues becomes, we had this issue in the early 2000s when we were trying to do it in 2005, the real estate market becomes so hot that it was very hard to set, but we had houses we wanted to set aside, but the demand for them was so strong. So it is tough in Florida, in the kind of real estate environment we have, but Ybor City happened because of cheap rents and available space.
Yes, we all know that the art touches the soul and it touches the spirit. We have beautiful parks, and I see them as so underutilized. Not only places for artists to exhibit their wear, but street musicians and street dancers. Are they not allowed in Tampa, or why don't you see them in some cities and not in others?
Some of these are going to let me questions that sort of answer, because I'm not really an official who can answer those. I'm not sure. But, so, if we need a real answer, we'll try to get with you later, but some of these we just want to hear from you. Go ahead.
There's quest to do community art all over the community. Many, many years ago, billboards were placed around the city that were created by artists. They were down in Lowry Park Zoo. When I was with the Children's Museum, we had those billboards everywhere. They were beautiful and they lasted for a long time. It was arts in common places.
Who's got a microphone?
Hi.
Hello.
I'm a poet and writer, and I didn't hear a whole lot of talk about the literary arts in Tampa.
Let's talk more about it. I think it's a great subject.
I have a question for the mayor. Within the last 2 years, St. Petersburg has named its second poet laureate. Orlando has named its first poet laureate. Even little old Oldsmar has a poet laureate. So my question to the mayor is if she has any plans to revive the poet laureateship, and if so, when might we hear about those plans?
Thank you very much.
Hi. So I kind of just have a twofold comment about what I felt was truly missing from some of the conversations and that I think needs to be addressed before anything can change in Tampa. These were only mentioned by 2 forum members that were both visibly not white, and only one of them was under the age of 40. So first, how can we talk about longevity in Tampa without including the next generation of artists and the children that we want to grow up here and stay here and create here? And second, I attended the mayoral candidates debate on art and quite a few of the Cafe Food Tampa events. And people of color and LGBTQIA+ and people of lower incomes are visibly missing from all of these conversations. So my comment is just that I don't see how Tampa can move forward with an arts and culture commission or a plan without first addressing who is missing from the table and how to intentionally include them. I heard a lot of complaints about arts professionals missing from the decision-making tables, but I counter that who is at the arts, who is not at the arts and culture table that needs to be.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Matt May. I'm an artist. I've lived in Tampa my whole life and worked as an artist and small business owner here for the last 15 years. And I think a lot of the story about Tampa's narrative, you could take a look back to Ybor City, even before your time, to the mutual aid societies that existed back then. Centro Storiano, some of the others that had medical care, legal, professional services that are available to artists. Because people forget, artists are also business people, right? If you're gonna do this for a lifetime, if you're gonna contribute to your community, having the efficiencies of a good business will draw talent, will retain talent, and will make things better. On the other side of things, I think we need to take a look at the development in downtown, increasing the public art and private development funds to a more reasonable amount as a way to generate more art in our community, and look at other ways to use development to subsidize some of the things that we're doing in the neighborhoods in order to connect artist spaces to those communities and make them even stronger.
Yeah, I think, what's fascinating is some of the first culture that came to Tampa, opera and other things, came through the immigrant culture who brought it from Europe. The first thing they built in those things were theaters. And so, culture came through our immigrants here in Tampa. Please, right over here.
Yes, hi, hello. I am a longtime Tampa native and have a very diverse background in art and music and all of the arts in general. Professional musician, longtime musician, as a singer, drummer, etc., and percussionist, as well as a fine artist, painting, drawing. I've taught in art schools, art and music, as well as on the broad spectrum of empowering other people to find their own creativity. I feel one of the most important aspects of fostering and cultivating more art appreciation, more support for the arts in our city is first and foremost a huge resource that we're not really acknowledging is all of the people that already are in the city that are not labeled as artists for such. They are people that run their grocery stores, they are people that have cafes, they are running their businesses, but inside their inner artists are still there. They just don't see themselves as artists per se because of the definition that we say who is an artist and who is not. I personally believe that everybody has, creativity is such a big word, but we're all artists. We just have to find our own niche in that. So my big passion is being able to help people unlock their own creativity. Once we do that with the people that we already have here in Tampa, they will start to define their own and support other creativity that's around them. Many people don't see themselves as artists, so they don't really support the arts in general. Only those people who see themselves as artists. So part of that is really helping people to step outside of the box of what is an artist and giving the artists who we see today who are struggling, so to speak, starving artists, giving them opportunities because they are, many of them, thankfully not me in this position now, but many of them are still really struggling. The artists that we have here that aren't being supported is because they really have, they're trying to make their life as an artist, but there's not really support structure for them.
We ought to keep, thank you very much.
Hello, I'm a digital social media person. I tell stories through digital marketing, so I appreciate everything that was said about marketing. I do agree the story is not being told sufficiently, especially when it comes to people of different abilities. I have to commend the city of Tampa. They have a wonderful initiative, autism friendly. What I'd like to see is ability friendly, all abilities. I think any decisions that are made about the arts have to include people that have different abilities. So brilliant dancers, visual artists, musicians with a variety of abilities, people who use chairs, people that are visually impaired, people that are hearing impaired. I just want to make sure that when the city is making plans, that they include these people because they have also other issues, accessibility issues, housing issues, transportation issues, and all of that needs to be taken into consideration, I believe, because regardless of their ability, they are brilliant artists, brilliant singers, dancers, performing artists, visual artists. Let's make sure they're at the table.
Thank you. We have time for one more. We'll go right here, and then we're going to bring the mayor back up. So thank you all for your patience and for being here.
Hi, I'm a co-founder of an event production team here.
Use the mic. Just put it to your mouth. Good.
Sorry. All right. I'm a co-founder of an event production team out here in Tampa. Something for me is there are a lot of people who I work with who work full-time, who are from a younger generation, and it is hard for us to enter spaces that are already established. I think that part of the larger conversation there needs to be deconstruction of classism in the arts. A lot of the organizations I work with are minority-owned, so how can we ensure that equal opportunity to resources, so organizations have a pathway to success, and ensure underrepresented voices are being included in the conversation?
Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody. We've got a lot of questions, but I'd like to get our mayor back up here, Jake Castor. And thank you all to the mayor and everyone for organizing this, and we'll continue talking afterwards. Thank you.
All right, thank you all so much. I really do appreciate. Someone just gave me how about a light art installation on the silos at Channelside and Adamo, and we were just driving down to Ybor City for a meeting today, and I said, man, we need to clean those things up with some art. So, questions, answers to some of the questions. The culture of yes. Don't know who brought it up, but I want to hug you. One of my first meetings with all of the city staff is I said I had a rule at the Tampa Police Department that if the phrase was uttered, this is the way we've always done it, you would be shot at dawn. We are all about how we can get things
things done rather than this is the reason it can't be done. So that's changing. The parks question, it is my intent to activate all of our parks around the community so that we can highlight each neighborhood.
Yes.
And one of the programs that I just talked about, we're going to activate first in the Barnes Park, and then things like Rolette Park, right on the river. It's absolutely beautiful. We can have all types of concerts and everything else. The Silver Springs Tower, everything we could do there. So yes on that as well. Poet Laureate, we have had James Tokley for a long time, but he is he's retiring, and so not being a poet, I will take all applications on that, and I'll figure out a way to do that. But yes, we're definitely going to have a Poet Laureate. We have one, but we're going to have another one.
Okay.
And then person that was talking about is very important, who's at the table. That has defined my career. Diversity. You know, we're all a sum total of our life experiences, and you have to have those life experiences at the table making decisions that affect our community. So I heard that loud. Two other topics covered affordable housing and transportation. Those both were the two first areas of focus of my campaign, and will be the focus of my administration. And I just told somebody yesterday, had a meeting on affordable housing yesterday, had a meeting on transportation today, and I said, man, these were a lot easier to talk about on the campaign trail. You have no idea what's involved in affordable housing, but that's not going to stop us. We are going to ramp that up, and that definitely is a focus of mine. So in closing, I want to say thank you to HCC, and as James said, let's give credit where credit is due. I want to recognize Robin Nye for all that she has done. She is manager of the arts programs for Tampa, and she is a strong party of one, and she has done amazing things on a shoestring budget through some very, very lean years. So I thank you. Paul Wilburn, I thank you as well. And your book, everybody, do what?
Buying the book.
Yeah, buying your book's all that's important. That's what you said. And I actually was down in Ybor City during those years. We won't talk about my age at that point. But at the Rough Riders, Jenny Carey and my sister worked down in that area. And I watched Paul Wilburn and his band many, many times. So what we learned this evening was the importance of art. Clearly, it helps define the success of our city. It attracts the best and the brightest from around the nation. And it enhances and enlightens our lives while bringing us together as a community. Very important. Now, what I got from this evening, we will try to digest and put in a form that is palatable to everyone on our website. And when I say we, that means somebody else will be doing that. It will be done. First is establish an arts commission. I heard that loud and clear. Develop a cultural vision along with a plan. If you don't have a plan, then the vision is worthless. Ask how we can infuse creativity, artistry, culture into everything that we do here in the city. Integrate art into all we do, understanding the value as an economic driver. We heard that over and over this evening. Make Tampa an arts, cultural, and entertainment destination. I love that. I love when you can put things in an acronym. Wait a minute. I got the city should and will create an arts guide. That's very important. Provide info to artists about different artists in the city, to the community about that as well, about the availability of grants, etc. Whatever we can do as a city to help build our arts community. Create an arts neighborhood and collaborative spaces, a centralized location for artists to work, display, and citizens to enjoy. And when Sam mentioned Seminole Heights over and over, I was very happy. When she mentioned sidewalks and complete streets, I think I fell in love. So that was a beauty right there. You were talking to me about all that. Ensure arts and culture are displayed at every step, as Carla so eloquently put. And lastly, collaborate, collaborate, and collaborate. And make sure that the arts are available in every form to everyone in our community. So, to Michael's point, storytelling is an art form, and Tampa needs to tell its story. I heard so many stories up here this evening that I've never heard before. It's incumbent upon all of us to tell Tampa's story through art. Very, very important. I look forward to working with each and every one of you to build our art community. Thank you again for coming out this evening, and I can't wait to get started. Thank you.
Even in just the past 2 years, our media exposure is most important for telling the story. I think telling the story better sums it all up. That connects artists with other artists. It connects artists with venues. It connects artists with business. It connects the community. Another thing that was very helpful to me was having a space, a studio space that had other artists included, so having close proximity to other practicing artists. It's very inspiring, sharing ideas. So obviously having a space like that for artists is important. People knowing that there are spaces like that for artists is important, which ties back to the media exposure. And if no one knows that there are spaces available, then those spaces won't be used to their full potential. I think it's also useful for connecting artists and the ideas of why art is important across different practices. I've noticed with my art, I've reached, last year I had a video that a video about my art went viral on the internet, and I had over 1 billion video views. The interest that generated from other artists that appreciated my work, from people in the industry. I use aluminum cans to create my artwork. So I've been approached by aluminum can manufacturers. I've been approached by the Aluminum Federation of the UK. I've interviewed with the Russian Aluminum Association. It's across the board. It's reaching those people is important, and it was the media exposure that made it possible. So, and that's gone on to help me do other exhibits, to exhibit my artwork internationally. And I think it's important locally also. The story, people need to be reminded about why art is important. And the story is what reminds them, and it's what connects them with the art and with the artist, connects artists with each other, and it grows the art naturally. It grows it in a grassroots kind of manner. Thank you.
Michael Hooker, artist, owner, Lector Social Club.
Hi. So I just want to echo the appreciation that's already been expressed to those who made this make possible, and then also pay respect to the indigenous people and lands upon which we sit. I don't have a grand vision to share with you tonight, but I do have a bottom to top strategy that may help bring the resources that we already have in Tampa to a more visible space, more accessible to artists and the public in general. So one approach would engage the city's cooperation to make a citywide, a citywide campaign to bring relevant information like grant money, jobs, venues, and organizations that artists can work with to a more accessible space. And I should just read this to you. This can be done in a number of ways, like a series of in-person skill-sharing events where artists and professionals take office hours with local artists and perhaps in different public spaces throughout the city. giving professional and practical advice, or even receiving feedback on current art projects would both support artists' individual needs and provide useful data about specific resources that its arts community truly is lacking, instead of imagining what they can from the top down on. From here, we can begin to identify and coordinate around mutual goals. So if there's a large percentage of people who are constantly looking for community art space, steps can be taken to assess whether we need better public transportation to existing spaces or an entirely new center altogether. And these events can be reinforced through small public art projects, using creative spaces around the city to advertise them while potentially promoting local artists' work. And all this should, of course, be online and more accessible online. But this way, the city itself becomes a cooperative resource on multiple levels. And once concrete actions are taken that signal to artists that their feedback is important and their work is valuable, I think there'll be more opportunities to collaborate on new projects, particularly those that conceive of the city as a site for art, which is a direction I think would be pretty exciting for Tampa to take.
I want to throw this out to the group, but not everyone has to answer. If you have an answer, step up. But I wanted to ask, what are the missing pieces of the puzzle for individual artists in Tampa, and what are some of the reasons artists leave, and what can we do to keep them around? Would you like to start? Jonathan?
I was just going to pick on something he said about marketing and exposing artists. I find it baffling, but I think I'm one of the only people that, well, entities that does this and not boasting it. I'm just saying that it has been just a completely amazing tool. I make a marketing video highlights of each artist that's involved in any event. It gives a story behind the artist as well as what they create, and it builds a buzz, you know. And we've had people who show up to events and say, where can I find this that I saw in the video? You know, it completely, it's giving them that advertising and branding that they need before they even get there. Second of all, I think that every event, to keep the artists here, you've got to have people. And you can't just target one demographic, and like you were saying about age. I've had artists that will have this 800 waiting list, and it doesn't matter what order for me. It's about variety and giving young people to old, you know, a chance. Someone who took buckets and they created bucket drums out of them, you know, bucket sounds, to people who make industrial repurposed lamps from just amazing things, from fine art to everything. And final thing I'm going to say is the owner of the property in which I started the first event on said, Jennifer, you're just not charging enough, and you spend way too much on advertising and the decorations and the photo board. I said, but that's what makes it special. I mean, they said, you're not, the vendors make more. I said, I don't care. And, you know, it's about, I believe, creating something that there's something for everyone. Because the artists are there to, to showcase their work. We're there to show the art and culture. And so we have things for all ages, and we laugh at the four-legged variety as well. You know, little stations for dogs, photo corners, interactive art activities, and everything's free. It's free to come to. And I think that's a lot too, is that you have to appeal to all ages and give everyone a chance. You know, not just the people who have been in it for years, like you said, who are older, but the young just starting out. I had one that was 12 years old, and I said, I love it. You know.
So I deal with a lot of artists who are coming here from other places to go to graduate school, and then making the decision once they leave graduate school, or once they finish graduate school, whether to stay or whether to go. Honestly, there's a couple of words that come up a lot, and those are bike lane and sidewalk. One of Tampa's, I think, largest problems is infrastructure. it was built for a car. It means that it's going to keep communities away from each other by nature of the way that the city has been constructed. And so somehow we need to figure out either how to bring people into an urban center or create some way for people to move between downtown and USF, for instance.
Public transport.
Public transportation would be a great one. A well-functioning bus system, maybe before public transportation, takes a lot of, we can get some buses on the road, right? So something that, this is, for the artists that I talk to, this is the #1 problem. They want to live in a place where they can walk out and walk into their community. And why
I think in Tampa, access is not equitable, right? I identify as, I'm a spoken word poet, and I identify as a masculine performing lesbian. I'm an immigrant, I'm Indian, I'm also Muslim. So I check off the boxes for a lot of places that are trying to do diversity. So it's not hard for me to get a gig, either nationally or internationally. And excuse the lack of modesty, I also look the way I look, so it works out. But at the same time, I'm a safe entity. I speak English so well, despite the fact that I'm not from here. I have all of these, I have 3 master's degrees. It's cute, right? In a lot of spaces, all of these things are attractive, but they're also safe. So it feels for a lot, that's my privilege, and that's a lot of privilege to have as a spoken word poet. A lot of my counterparts don't have the same privileges that I enjoy. Their identities are too political. Their identities are too unsafe. Their identities are so far right stereotyped that even in the most leftist of spaces, they are not allowed into, right? That access, that lack of access in Tampa, which is such a political hotbed, this should not be the space where those things are happening. This should not be the space where we are looking for safe humans, right? And clearly, I'm 100% not in, I think it was strategic, I'm clearly not 100% in the institution, despite the fact that I have been previously institutionalized. Not like that, I mean like, in the academic institution. The academic institution is what I mean, which I mean, no harm, no foul. But that's what I mean, right? So access is not equitable, and it must be intentional. Who we are putting in our spaces must be intentional. The people most marginalized must have spaces within which they can practice their art. It is not free for all. It is not accessible to all. We can use that as a marketing tool, but it's not the truth.
I agree that access, both transportation-wise and culturally acceptance-wise, are both very important. And I think that having a livable city is an important part of having a city where people want to stay for any reason, whether it be to make art or to raise a family. But I think just as important is to cultivate the next generation of artists that will grow up in Tampa and create art in Tampa. Obviously, embracing the young people and inspiring young artists, I think, is important. I do a lot of my work, besides making art, is describing and educating people about my art, and talking about how we all know art is important for attracting people to go downtown or to go walk around and see a mural or street art. But the creative process is important for a lot more profound reasons. The education, the way that the creative process can be used the same way by a painter, a dancer, a musician, or a lawyer. Lawyers interpret the law. So if you're trained to observe and interpret something, it can be applied across a wide range of practice. So that's a big narrative behind my work, and I think that's something that you can reach out to young people with. It's also something that that everyone can appreciate, and I think it shows a value in art not by selling it, or not it's by sharing it. And circling back to my first point, is that the story needs to be told for it to take root. That's what I think.
I agree with everything you said, and I'm interested in the next question.
The next question is, and I start with you, we'll work our way back down. What opportunities excite you right now in Tampa in the arts, and what opportunities do you wish were available? You can answer either or both.
Can you repeat the first part of the question?
What opportunities excite you right now in Tampa in the arts?
So I'm excited that we have the opportunity to not make mistakes that other cities have made in terms of public transportation, in terms of development and affordable housing. We have an opportunity to not chase other cities, but to go, oh yeah, you screwed up there, we're not going to do that. And I think that's a real rich space for us to pay attention to, because there's still developments that are happening that are displacing folks. And then I'd like to see more grant money. I'd like to see more people grant money for participatory arts, socially engaged arts, and more communal spaces that people can work together.
And everybody, we've got about 30 seconds for each of your responses, so I'm sorry to make it tight, but we've got a lot of people to ask questions.
What was the question? The first one?
Oh, what excites you right now about the arts in Tampa, or do you have any opportunities you wish were available?
Well, I'm excited by the development that the boom in development that Tampa's experiencing, and I hope that that'll continue to create more opportunities for artists as the development embraces art through street art, through design, through architecture. That's looking forward. I think that's the most exciting thing for me.
Thank you. Just about 30 seconds to respond. Go ahead, Sam.
Okay.
Sure.
I think there's been developing a strong connection between politics and art in Tampa, and that has been on the rise, very public spaces. And the more we activate public spaces with both art and politics, the more artistic and political those spaces become. I'm excited to see that.
Cheap and available space. That's like a big one. People are moving out of Manhattan. People left a long time ago, but they're moving out of the boroughs now because there isn't cheap and available space. And I've met some New Yorkers moving down here, artists who are interested in, being able to have a space where they can actually make work and live in a place where they don't have to work a 60-hour week at a job to pay for that space.
10, 20 seconds. Last call.
Basically, to piggyback on what everyone was saying, like I said, I'm a Tampa native. My mom did the Gasparilla art shows when I was 5, and I tagged along. And as far as growth, it's just been amazing when you talk about growth to see where we've come since then. And I love what you just said about activating spaces. I'm almost obsessed with, like, all of my daughters. Do I have to schedule time to sit down with you and hang out with you? Because, like I said, I started the Channel District, and now, we've worked with the Italian Club. And I believe it's in activating the city's large spaces. And I know there's been so many attempts at doing that, but I think it's that whole community over competition and collaborating and coming together. And every wonderful entity project I've been involved in has been just that, collaborating.
It's been great. We're going to move on to our questions because we got a lot of folks out there I think have questions, and then we'll get the mayor back up. Thank you, Noel, Sam, Noah, Michael, Jennifer, our planner, for the panel. We're going to invite folks to ask questions. We've got our panelists standing by, so if you want to address to a certain panelist, let us know. We'll drag them up here. If you want to talk in general, ask a general question, we'll try to find a responder for you. And we've got some folks moving around with microphones.
Hi. I'm Will Glenn. I'm with the Tampa International Fringe Festival. And I just have just two quick things that I'll say in under a minute. One question is, what can we do to address the space issue? I've seen in other cities we have tons of vacant spaces in Ybor City and downtown, various different parts of the city. One of the things that I've seen in other cities is that the city incentivizes or otherwise enables those business people that own those, I assume they're real estate people, that own those empty spaces to make them available to artists. And I don't see any reason why that couldn't happen here. The other thought that I have is just something that Neil Gobiov said at the previous Forum for the Arts, which is what can we do and what, I guess specifically, can you, Mayor Castro, do to change the culture in Tampa from a culture of no to a culture of yes?
Okay, we've got one here, and I just want to say, I think one of the issues becomes, we had this issue in the early 2000s when we were trying to do it in 2005, the real estate market becomes so hot that it was very hard to set, but we had houses we wanted to set aside, but the demand for them was so strong. So it is tough in Florida, in the kind of real estate environment we have, but Ybor City happened because of cheap rents and available space.
Yes, we all know that the art touches the soul and it touches the spirit. We have beautiful parks, and I see them as so underutilized. Not only places for artists to exhibit their wear, but street musicians and street dancers. Are they not allowed in Tampa, or why don't you see them in some cities and not in others?
Some of these are going to let me questions that sort of answer, because I'm not really an official who can answer those. I'm not sure. But, so, if we need a real answer, we'll try to get with you later, but some of these we just want to hear from you. Go ahead.
The mayor's quest to do community art all over the community. Many years ago, billboards were placed around the city that were created by artists. They were down in Lowry Park Zoo. When I was with the Children's Museum, we had those billboards everywhere. They were beautiful and they lasted for a long time. It was arts in common places.
Who's got a microphone?
Hi,
Hello.
I'm a poet and writer, and I didn't hear a whole lot of talk about the literary arts in Tampa.
Let's talk more about it. I think it's a great subject.
I have a question for the mayor. Within the last 2 years, St. Petersburg has named its second poet laureate. Orlando has named its first poet laureate. Even little old Oldsmar has a poet laureate. So my question to the mayor is if she has any plans to revive the poet laureateship, and if so, when might we hear about those plans?
Thank you very much.
Hi. So I kind of just have a twofold comment about what I felt was truly missing from some of the conversations and that I think needs to be addressed before anything can change in Tampa. These were only mentioned by 2 forum members that were both visibly not white, and only one of them was under the age of 40. So first, how can we talk about longevity in Tampa without including the next generation of artists and the children that we want to grow up here and stay here and create here? And second, I attended the mayoral candidates debate on art and quite a few of the Cafe from Tampa events. And people of color and LGBTQIA+ and people of lower incomes are visibly missing from all of these conversations. So my comment is just that I don't see how Tampa can move forward with an arts and culture commission or a plan without first addressing who is missing from the table and how to intentionally include them. I heard a lot of complaints about arts professionals missing from the decision-making tables, but I counter that who is at the arts, who is not at the arts and culture table that needs to be.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Matt. I am an artist that lived in Tampa my whole life and worked as an artist and small business owner here for the last 15 years. And I think a lot of the story about Tampa's narrative, you could take a look back to Ybor City, even before your time, to the mutual aid societies that existed back then. Centro Storiano, some of the others that had medical care, legal, professional services that are available to artists. Because people forget, artists are also business people, right? If you're going to do this for a lifetime, if you're going to contribute to your community, having the efficiencies of a good business will draw talent, will retain talent, and will make things better. On the other side of things, I think we need to take a look at the development in downtown, increasing the public art and private development funds to a more reasonable amount as a way to generate more art in our community, and look at other ways to use development to subsidize some of the things that we're doing in the neighborhoods in order to connect artist spaces to those communities and make them even stronger.
Yeah, I think, you know, what's fascinating is some of the first culture that came to Tampa, opera and other things, came through the immigrant culture who brought it from Europe. The first thing they built in those things were theaters. And so, culture came through our immigrants here in Tampa. Please, right over here.
Yes, hi, hello. I am a longtime Tampa native and have a very diverse background in art and music, and all of the arts in general. Professional musician, longtime musician, as a singer, drummer, etc., and percussionist, as well as a fine artist, painting, drawing. I've taught in art schools, art and music, as well as on the broad spectrum of empowering other people to find their own creativity. I feel one of the most important aspects of fostering and cultivating more art appreciation, more support for the arts in our city is first and foremost a huge resource that we're not really acknowledging is all of the people that already are in the city that are not labeled as artists per such. They are people that run their grocery stores. They are people that have cafes. They are running their businesses. But inside, their inner artists are still there. They just don't see themselves as artists, per se, because of the definition that we say who is an artist and who is not. I personally believe that everybody has creativity, is such a big word, but we're all artists. We just have to find our own niche in that. So my big passion is being able to help people unlock their own creativity. Once we do that with the people that we already have here in Tampa, they will start to define their own and support other creativity that's around them. Many people don't see themselves as artists, so they don't really support the arts in general. Only those people who see themselves as artists. So part of that is really helping people to step outside of the box of what is an artist and giving the artists who we see today who are struggling, so to speak, starving artists, giving them opportunities because they are, many of them, thankfully not me in this position now, but many of them are still really struggling. The artists that we have here that aren't being supported is because they really have, they're trying to make their life as an artist, but there's not really a support structure for them.
We ought to keep, thank you very much.
Hello, I'm a digital social media person. I tell stories through digital marketing, so I appreciate everything that was said about marketing. I do agree the story is not being told sufficiently, especially when it comes to people of different abilities. I have to commend the city of Tampa. They have a wonderful initiative, autism friendly. What I'd like to see is ability friendly, all abilities. I think any decisions that are made about the arts have to include people that have different abilities. So brilliant dancers, visual artists, musicians with a variety of abilities, people who use chairs, people that are visually impaired, people that are hearing impaired. I just want to make sure that when the city is making plans, that they include these people because they have also other issues, accessibility issues, housing issues, transportation issues, and all of that needs to be taken into consideration, I believe, because regardless of their ability, they are brilliant artists, brilliant singers, dancers, performing artists, visual artists. Let's make sure they're at the table.
Thank you. We have time for one more. We'll go right here, and then we're going to bring the mayor back up. So thank you all for your patience and for being here.
Hi, I'm a co-founder of an event production team here.
Use the mic. Just put it to your mouth. Go ahead.
Sorry. All right. I'm a co-founder of an event production team out here in Tampa. Something for me is there are a lot of people who I work with who work full-time, who are from a younger generation, and it is hard for us to enter spaces that are already established. I think
Someone just gave me how about a light art installation on the silos at Channelside and Adamo, and we were just driving down to Ybor City for a meeting today, and I said, man, we need to clean those things up with some art. So, questions, answers to some of the questions. The culture of yes. Don't know who brought it up, but I want to hug you. One of my first meetings with all of the city staff is I said I had a rule at the Tampa Police Department that if the phrase was uttered, this is the way we've always done it, you would be shot at dawn. We're all about how we can get things done rather than this is the reason it can't be done. So that's changing. The parks question, it is my intent to activate all of our parks around the community so that we can highlight each neighborhood. Yes. And one of the programs that I just talked about, we're going to activate first in the Barnes Park. And then things like Rolette Park, right on the river, it's absolutely beautiful. We can have all types of concerts and everything else. The Silver Springs Tower, everything we could do there. So yes on that as well. Poet Laureate, we have had James Tokley for a long time, but he is he's retiring, and so not being a poet, I will take all applications on that, and we'll figure out a way to do that. But yes, we're definitely going to have a poet laureate. We have one, but we're going to have another one. Okay. And then person that was talking about is very important, who's at the table. That has defined my career. Diversity. You know, we're all a sum total of our life experiences, and you have to have those life experiences at the table making decisions that affect our community. So I heard that loud. Covered affordable housing and transportation. Those both were the two first areas of focus of my campaign, and will be the focus of my administration. And I just told somebody yesterday, had a meeting on affordable housing yesterday, had a meeting on transportation today, and I said, man, these were a lot easier to talk about on the campaign trail. Because you have no idea what's involved in affordable housing, but that's not going to stop us. We are going to ramp that up, and that definitely is a focus of mine. So, in closing, I want to say thank you to HCC, and as James said, let's give credit where credit is due. I want to recognize Robin Nye for all that she has done. She is manager of the arts programs for Tampa, and she is a strong party of one, and she has done amazing things on a shoestring budget through some very, very lean years. So I thank you. Paul Wilburn, I thank you as well. And your book, you do what?
Buying the book.
Yeah, buying your book's all that's important. That's what you said. And I actually was down in Ybor City during those years. We won't talk about my age at that point. But at the Rough Riders, Jenny Carey and my sister worked down in that area. And I watched Paul Wilburn and his band many, many times. So, what we learned this evening was the importance of art, clearly. It helps define the success of our city. It attracts the best and the brightest from around the nation. It enhances and enlightens our lives while bringing us together as a community. Very important. Now, what I got from this evening, we will try to digest and put in a form that is palatable to everyone on our website. And when I say we, that means somebody else will be doing that. It will be done. First is establish an arts commission. I heard that loud and clear. Develop a cultural vision along with a plan. If you don't have a plan, then the vision is worthless. Ask how we can infuse creativity, artistry, culture into everything that we do here in the city. Integrate art into all we do, understanding the value as an economic driver. We heard that over and over this evening. Make Tampa an arts, cultural, and entertainment destination. I love that. I love when you can put things in an acronym. Ensure, wait a minute, I got the city should and will create an arts guide. That's very important. Provide provide info on to artists, about different artists in the city, to the community about that as well, about the availability of grants, etc. Whatever we can do as a city to help build our arts community. Create an arts neighborhood and collaborative spaces, a centralized location for artists to work, display, and citizens to enjoy. And when Sam mentioned Seminole Heights over and over, I was very happy. When she mentioned sidewalks and complete streets, I think I fell in love. So that was a interview right there. You were talking to me about all that. Ensure arts and culture are displayed at every step, as Carla so eloquently put. And lastly, collaborate, collaborate, and collaborate. And make sure that the arts are available in every form to everyone in our community. So to Michael's point, storytelling is an art form, and Tampa needs to tell its story. I heard so many stories up here this evening that I've never heard before. It's incumbent upon all of us to tell Tampa's story through art. Very, very important. I look forward to working with each and every one of you to build our art community. Thank you again for coming out this evening, and I can't wait to get started. Thank you.